Hi everybody, this is the Baseball HUD, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, HUD, and welcome back to another visit to the insane asylum known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha, they're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny fun.
And welcome back to the Baseball HUD 3, and hopefully you like this video, and hit that subscribe button. So this is kind of like a WFAN, nervous hospital visit. Because we're going to talk about a former employee who was off the air, but now he's kind of on the air in Philadelphia, and that's this guy, Spike Estin, I was looking at a picture of him, and he's like a walking, talking, living embodiment of gingivitis and cigarettes. I mean, that's what he reminds me of. I don't know why. So he just reminds me of. I don't know why that is. When you see him, you think of gingivitis. I don't know why. I do. But he had some interesting things about podcasts and YouTube. And this guy is way, way, way off. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Because again, we've talked about this a lot. He works for a corporation. All these clowns work for corporations. And what makes this, what I do here and other people on this platform and other podcasts and other places, you don't work for anybody but yourself. And that is empowering. This guy could be gone off of, this Philadelphia radio station, go somewhere else and work for another corporation or within the same corporation. And there are things that sports talk does not talk about, particularly WFAN. They are very much, they don't go into one lane, and we'll get into that. But here's from our announcement. WIP Spike Estin, a.k.a. the gingivitis man, terrible, argues radio has caught up to podcasts, YouTube. Now it just becomes a battle of the fittest. Quote, I still think we are better at doing what we do than anybody is at doing what we do. And I think that's proven over and over. But I'm not doing what you do. I'm not talking about you and goofing on you. Okay? And I don't need a laugh track to know what I'm saying is funny. Like cable television or newspapers, the argument for years has been that sports radio was on its way out. There are fewer stations, fewer jobs, and fewer listeners than the medium's heyday. In its place came satellite, commercial-free radio, then podcasts, and YouTube shows. In other words, goodbye, Mike Francesa. Hello, pardon my take. Pardon my take. Isn't that like another corporate thing? Mike Francesa was corporate. But now, according to Philadelphia radio host and former WFAN program director, the gingivitis man, Spike Estin radio is catching up. This is because sports radio is now on all the platforms that disrupted its popularity over the past decade or so. The fact that we are on the platforms that all of our competitors are evens the playing field in a way that strengthens us. Estin argued in an interview posted by Sirius XM host David Shepard. I don't think so, buddy. Because if you're an independent person, you can say anything. Like your host, I'll say anything. You never know what the hell I'm going to say. I don't even know what the hell I'm going to say. And I'm not polished. I didn't go to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I didn't go to Columbia Broadcasting School either. That's for sure. I'm not getting like diction lessons and taking, spending money and having people tell me how to say certain things, like pronunciation or Rico Brogna. Quote, it used to be where podcasts were going to beat radio on YouTube, going to beat radio on streaming, going to beat radio. But now we're here too. So it's less about the radio, which people still tune into. Now it just becomes a battle of the fittest at who is best at doing what we do. And I still think we are better at doing what we do than anybody is at doing what we do. And I think that's proven over and over according to what we do. No, I didn't add that last part. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of a gibberish, double talk, to be honest with you. My good. Well, I swear, he looks like gingivitis. Can't what anybody tells me. Are you going to hear anything else like that from any of these radio people? Sports radio shows, national, local, are often among the top podcasts on the charts. Many stations in the biggest markets, they all have like professional voices like this. Many stations in the biggest markets around the country have begun to simulcast their shows on YouTube or Twitch and post video clips on social media. Stations also produce their own original digital content. And they also have their own separate people to go and deal with the muck on different places like YouTube and on Twitch and all these other places. It may have taken a while, but Estin, who co-hosts the midday show on Philly's 94 WIP, believes that these adjustments have once again allowed sports radio hosts to flex their muscles as the once and forever best at their craft. Estin added that as networks flock to hosts who can draw an audience with their personality and charisma, radio stations around the country have been doing this forever. I mean, this is kind of the and that's another thing. There's a real authenticity to radio that you don't get like from me. I mean, I'm authentic. You may not like what I say a lot of times, but I'm authentic. I am real. I'm a real breathing person. I'm not some puppet like all these other people are. This guy is a puppet. As a result, Estin believes young content creators should more seriously consider a future at radio. Why? So you could be someone's bitch? Maybe what you could do is, if you're a young content creator, take some classes. I wouldn't even bother graduating. Just take some classes that you need just to polish your craft. That's it. Don't even get a degree and waste money. I mean, waste some money, but not a lot of money. Anybody who loves it, somebody's got to do it. It's not going away, Estin said. Now, are you going to become as rich as you would have in 2004? The answer is probably no. But you're not going to get as rich in any sort of entertainment field as a performer as you would have 20 years ago. This guy's depressing. Just like gingivitis. God. He's depressing like gingivitis. He really is. But the reality is that he can say whatever the hell he wants. The reality is, it's the corporations. The corporations, these big, toxic, all-encompassing corporations, are putting these radio station, personalities, and you get a chance to see what they look like. It's like, really, there's a reason why they're on the radio. But a lot of them are puppets. Spike Estin is a puppet, just like all the WFAN. And all due respect, they're all puppets on WFAN. They're all puppets, really, from one radio station to another radio station. And they really just espouse certain things. Now, the one thing I've noticed, and I know I don't know what other radio stations did in other places, but WFN is the big radio station in the country, and they're number one in New York, obviously. Never once did they mention, over the last several years, men and women's sports. Never. They never, ever discussed it. Not one host ever took a stance. There was this man who was in the women's boxing category in the Olympics and beat the hell out of some girl. At the 40 seconds, she said, "I'm not fighting this guy." And she basically gave up. Well, it turns out this past year they did a DNA test, and he was a man. Everybody knew that. But the Olympics, they had to verify it, and he was a man. They never once mentioned this on in 2024 or any kind of news. Nothing. They ignore it. It's just like the regular media. They ignore a lot of stuff. Like, I couldn't tell you what anybody at WFAN thinks about men and women's sports. You don't hear about it. Or this past year where this man was body lifting, these tremendous weights against these women. You never heard anything about this. And how he was just completely dominating all these women's categories. I mean, this is the one thing Spike Estin doesn't get, and a lot of them don't get. And a lot of the sort of, my competitors don't get either. If they get it, they're scared shitless. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the most obvious thing, And it doesn't really affect your host, because what I do with the baseball and the Mets, it doesn't really affect, obviously all men playing the sports, but none of them will ever talk about it. Everything is Very traditional. You don't want to get into it. They just, and the thing is they do is they just ignore it. And if they talk about it, they just mention it, and that's it. They don't, there's no sort of morality talk about it or anything like that, whether it's right or wrong. I think it's wrong, but you never know with any of these guys. And I think a lot of them have no problem with it. And if they do have a problem with it, they're not going to talk about it on the air openly. And they probably, you know, and I mean, like last year, there was so many big stories about all these men, and so many stories over the last few years, so many big stories, and they just ignored it. You know, the whole thing of Riley Gaines, you know, going up against William Thomas and these matches and you know, the water and, you know, these swimming matches, and she just, you know, the guy just completely destroyed everybody. And her life was almost ruined by these people when she began to stand up for herself. But you didn't hear anything from these radio stations, so that's the difference. And that's also another thing is that that goes on in the media. Like I said, they ignore certain things, and in sports they ignore this because they can't talk about it. This is not what they want to talk about, and unfortunately, there's a good portion of the audience doesn't want to listen to it. To be honest with you, they just want to pretend it doesn't happen. They want to pretend a lot of stuff isn't going on around them. That's why I've gotten a lot of pushback this week, you know, on Francisco Lindor, because people don't want to hear about it. But if it's in your face and they can respond, but then if your host responds to it and there's something, I'm just doing something that's very different than they're used to. You don't hear this anywhere else. But you let me know what you think about this video, and of course, this is another visit to the insane asylum known as WFAN. Now, I would mention, of course, Spike Estin no longer works there at the moment. But, you know, the one thing we see about the radio, everything is recyclable. And at some point, he'll be on the air. And when Craig Carton gets leaves or whatever happens to him, he'll be coming in. The gingivitis man will be coming in. So, thank you for watching this video. And, of course, please subscribe to Baseball at 3, and I'll see you later.
They're coming to take me away, ha ha. They're coming to take me away, ho ho, hee hee, ha ha, to the funny fun.